So Death Note is a series that any, if not all, manga fans should be familiar with by now. It's a cult classic and it's highly regarded by the majority of manga fans as being the pinnacle of Shonen Jump. Now last year we were graced with a new one-shot from the creators of Death Note, and this created a huge buzz on the internet and everyone started talking about the possibility of a Death Note sequel. But many of you may know that Tsugumi Ohba and Takeshi Obata actually have another new series that is being, I'd say, overlooked, to be honest. And that is of course Platinum End. So the question I want to ask you today is, do you think Platinum End is being treated unfairly? Let's get to it. So hi guys, and welcome back to On The Shelf. I want to say first and foremost, Happy New Year. I'm really glad to be back. As you can tell, my setup has changed quite a bit because I've actually moved house. So I'm now recording in a new setup and manga room, if you like. But I was actually planning on doing a manga room tour, although everything's still in boxes, so that's sort of shelved, if you like, for a while. So we will get back to that very soon. But yeah, as I said before, I really want to talk about a series that I'm very passionate about. I think it's really, really good and I'm really enjoying it at the moment, but I don't see a whole lot of people talking about it, and I think it's, to be honest, criminally underrated. And I just want to give you a quick overview of what Platinum End is and why you should be reading it. So at the time of recording, Platinum End has actually finished serializing, I believe. But in terms of its physical release in English, we have 11 volumes to date out of, I believe, a total of 14 or 15. So there's still a while yet for you to catch up with this series, just in time for it to finish. And obviously this review is talking about what I've read so far, so volumes 1 to 11, and I don't know how it ends. So if the ending is terrible, I will probably make a follow-up video. But yeah, for now, we just want to talk about Platinum End, up to date, volume 1 to 11, and what I think of it. So Platinum End follows a rather similar scenario to Death Note, but kind of flipped on its head. So instead of having Shinigami, Platinum End has angels, and it all revolves around a schoolboy named Mirai, which actually means future in Japanese, and his journey as he becomes a god candidate. So there are 13 god candidates in total, and they all have to decide amongst themselves who is going to be god. And in order to do that, they all get gifts from their angels. So there's varying different kind of rank of angels. So the lower rank angels only either have wings or red arrows, and red arrows allow the user to make someone fall in love with them and do whatever they tell them to do. On the other hand, other angels actually have white arrows in addition to those two things, and white arrows allow them to kill people. So the way in which these candidates are chosen is that they are all suicidal. So anyone who has kind of lost the will to live at a particular moment can be chosen by an angel, and in this situation 13 angels chose 13 suicidal individuals to fight to become god. The reason for doing this, I believe, is because instead of being someone who is already happy and already feels like they have everything, these people have nothing, and they will therefore see the world in a different way, and they also might sort of see things that they'd like to change about the world. So that makes them an ideal candidate to be god, because in theory they could change the world for the better to make more people happy and make less people want to commit suicide. So already some really heavy themes, and I think you can already tell there's kind of some similarities between Death Note and Platinum End. And I think that's one of the biggest positives of this series, but also one of the biggest negatives. So from the get-go, Platinum End came in a bit of a handicap because everyone was wondering if it would be better than Death Note, and then when they realized that it was just angels instead of death gods and arrows instead of a Death Note, people sort of wrote it off and decided not to read it. Now I think that's just, you know, the worst thing that you could do, because everything that a creator sets out to create isn't necessarily a cut and paste clone of what they were doing previously. You know, that's their art, that's their sort of medium, if you like, and I think we should all give them a fair chance to sort of prove that that's not the case before, you know, just preemptively deciding before you've even read it. And Platinum End has some really interesting sort of themes and tones to it that, yes, although they are similar to Death Note, are, you know, worth diving into. The idea that the character has lost all his will to live is in itself very different to the character of Light Yagami, who was, you know, this really intellectual character who seemingly had everything. He had a wonderful life, a really loving home and family, but for some reason he decided that he didn't like the way the world was and he was going to change it. Our main character Mirai is suicidal, he is given up on life, and his only kind of hope from becoming a god candidate is to find happiness and to make everyone else happy as well. And the most important difference is that his character feels such a sense of morality that he actually refuses to kill anyone. So he has white arrows, red arrows, and wings, and he's reluctant to use them because he doesn't feel like it's his decision to kill anyone. His main overarching goal is to make everyone happy, and he believes in by doing that he himself will find happiness as well. Now where Platinum End really shines, and again in comparison to Death Note, is there's kind of an array of rules for god candidates. You know, different things get introduced as the story progresses, just with the Death Note, how Light would learn new things and new ways to use it. Our characters find out new things about their gifts and abilities which allow them to, you know, interact with other god candidates in a very different scenario. Initially, the story does begin in quite a cliche way. Now this is probably what might have put off a lot of people initially with Platinum End. So it begins in sort of a battle royale scenario, and this got compared a lot online to an anime called Mirai Nikki Future Diary, which also, you know, has a very similar setup. All these people fighting to become god, and they're all trying to kill one another. And that is how the story begins. We have one kind of main antagonist, and he's decided that the quickest way to become god is to try and kill all the other candidates. Now, without spoiling it, later on in the series, it takes a very dramatic turn away from that, and it becomes less about a kind of fight to the death, and more about, you know, what the candidates would do with their sort of powers if they became god, why they all want to change the world, and, you know, what their kind of end goal is. This quickly became my favourite thing about Platinum End, is that, you know, there's a whole host of interesting different characters, but they all have differing reasons to become god. All of their angels are kind of an angel of something different. So you have like an angel of destruction, an angel of games, an angel of knowledge, and they've all chosen candidates based off of their kind of speciality. So every character in the story has a very different outlook and a different perspective on life. So as opposed to Death Note, you don't just have one character trying to do everything in their kind of tunnel vision view of what the world should be. You have all these different characters, and at times I found reasons to kind of side with all of them. So I didn't sort of initially kind of feel drawn to Mirai or his outlook, and that's another kind of negative for the series, is that if you think that he's sort of the main character, yes, in a way he is, and if you don't really vibe with him, which I myself didn't, there are other characters in this story that get introduced later on, and they all seem pivotal to how the story might end. So if you think, you know, you've gone into Platinum End before and you've tried to read it and you just thought it was a cut and paste clone of Mirai Nikki or Death Note, it's neither. And although it might not be, you know, kind of as good as Death Note in many ways, I think it still deserves a lot more attention than it's getting. By volume 4 or 5, as I said, the series just changes completely, and I have no idea how it's going to end, and I'm loving it. I just want more people to read this series so I can have more of a discussion about, you know, why I love it and all the different aspects of it. It is important to mention finally as well that Platinum End, it seems a little bit more adult than Death Note. Like, there's nudity and sex in this, there's a lot of, you know, grotesque sort of violence in this as well, which I never felt was present in Death Note. I think the whole story revolves around a character killing a lot of people, but it wasn't done in kind of a really garish way, and it was more about the kind of intellectual mind games that the characters all played with each other. Whereas this one is more about sort of an, you know, kind of the action. It's more of an action heavy series. There's a lot of dialogue as well, which they excel at. I would say it's very well done, and there's a lot of kind of strategic planning in some of these action scenarios, but It is, yeah, it is much more action heavy, and there's definitely some things, at least in the first 2 volumes, that took me off guard. The themes of suicide, the themes of kind of people who actually chose to abuse their powers initially. So the angels in this story, they don't necessarily pick people who are traditionally good or bad. I think they don't really perceive humans as being good or bad or whatever. They just chose someone who they thought might be interesting, and it's sort of that same scenario where Ryuk chooses light because he thinks it'll be fun. The angels seem to have that same vibe to them as well, and that leads to a lot of characters doing quite, you know, sinister things early on. There's a bit of a murder spree that goes on in the 3rd volume, and yeah, I think that this series has so much to offer and so many kind of varied situations that I just want more people to give it a fair chance. Finally, I just want to mention that these covers, these physical release covers, are some of my favorites. So just to nerd out for a minute, you know, every kind of book has this really cool, I don't know if you can see it in this light, but it has a very shiny sort of repeated holographic image over it, like a bit of a film, and that is actually the image of the angels' arrows. So there's kind of a repeated shiny arrow effect, and of course, you know, every character design, all the artwork in this is absolutely beautiful, and it's just such a high standard release from Viz Media that I'd love to see more of these on your shelves. So that's really it for today's video. Let me know down below if you've read Platinum End and what you think of it. Of course, please no spoilers for the ending if you are that far ahead. I really don't want to know what happens, and there probably will be a follow-up video to this when I have completed it. But of course, you know, just give it a fair chance, give it a try, and if you don't like it, then we can have that discussion as well. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you all had a wonderful Christmas and a great new year and all that, and I'm going to try and be more consistent with videos this year. We're going to be trying to put out more different types of series, doing all sorts of different things on the channel, so look forward to that as well. If you enjoyed the video, please hit like and subscribe and all that stuff. You know, you guys are just so appreciated, and everything you do for this channel, it doesn't go overlooked. So thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you next time. Peace.